Good morning, everyone. Everybody must still be asleep. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're here today to continue a discussion about 167 Rucker Avenue. I call the meeting to order. Can't see that clock, y'all. 10:04 a.m. on Monday, July the 10th, 2017. Apparently this issue has been going on for quite some time. The committee has had a chance to review some different documents and information pertaining to 167 Rucker Avenue. Owner Stephen Price. Is Mr. Price present at this time? Please note that Mr. Price is present here today with us. Thank you, Mr. Price, for coming out today, taking your time to come out and respond to the concerns here that the committee has and the city has with your property at 167 Rucker Avenue. Will the committee people just quickly introduce themselves for the record so we'll know who all is here? Vincent Morris, Chair of the committee.
Beverly Wallace.
Bill Stark.
Billy Perkins, Secretary.
At this time, we can progress forward.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you, members of the board. On May 22nd, 2017, a hearing was conducted before hearing officer Ashley Lamore, who heard evidence presented by the city and by Mr. Price regarding a citation of various sections of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances on his property at 167 Rucker Avenue. Hearing officer Lamore found Mr. Price's property to be in violation of Georgetown Code Section 9-2, subsection 7, as amended by Ordinance 16-009, which prohibits the open storage of equipment, furnishings, appliance, scrap, or salvage materials. The remaining violations were dismissed. Mr. Price today appeals the hearing officer's decision finding a violation of Section 9-2, subsection 7. Georgetown Code of Ordinances, or Georgetown Ordinance 16-009, subsection 11A states, within 7 days of the entry of a final order issued by the hearing officer, the order may be appealed by the alleged violator to the board, which shall review the record created before the hearing officer and determine whether there is substantial evidence on the record to support a finding by the hearing officer that a violation was committed. If the board determines that there is not substantial evidence on the record, it shall issue an order dismissing the citation. If the board determines that there is substantial evidence on the record that a violation was committed, it shall issue a final order upholding the order entered by the hearing officer. Members of this board were provided with copies of exhibits presented at the hearing, with a link to the video to watch the full hearing, and with a copy of the hearing officer's final order dated June 6th. At the hearing, several photos were presented showing open storage of equipment, furnishings, appliances, scrap, or salvage materials in violation of Section 9-2, subsection 7 upon Mr. Price's property. I would like to turn your attention to a slideshow featuring those pictures. I'm just going to flip through these, and if anyone wants me to go backwards or forwards, I'm happy to do so. Code Section 9-2 subsection 7 allows open storage of salvage materials only when such materials are, quote, actively being used for construction. Mr. Price claims that he is actively using these materials for various building projects. However, Mr. Price admitted during the hearing that he'd been salvaging materials from other properties and storing them at 167 Rucker Avenue since 2004, and that some of the salvaged materials have been on his property for longer than a year, and possibly since 2014. Mr. Price stated that he obtained some of the lumber from a nearby construction site. Mr. Price stated that he was using the materials to build a shed in which to store his salvaged materials, and also stated that he intends to build a greenhouse using the clear plastic containers he is openly storing on the property. The hearing officer's final order gave Mr. Price 30 days to rectify the violation of Code Section 9-2 subsection 7. Mr. Price has failed to rectify the violation within 30 days, which occurred on July 6th. The hearing officer's order was based on substantial evidence on the record. The city therefore requests an order of this board upholding the hearing officer's order in accordance with Ordinance 16-009. That's all I have.
You guys have any questions? About the city's testimony? At this time, I would just like to recognize Mr. Price, the owner of 167 Rucker Avenue, just to ask him if he has any questions about any of that information or evidence that was presented thus far.
Yes.
Okay,
Come up.
you can come up to the podium, Mr. Price.
I heard the date mentioned, July the 6th. My records show that the hearing officer issued her order to me on the 30th of May, gave me 30 days from that date, which would have been July the 30th, right? Or, let's see, no, maybe
June 30th.
June 30th, I mean, or June, let's see, May 30th or 31st, I'm not sure, but anyway, of June. And, but then I heard you mentioned, did I not hear you say July the 6th?
I did.
What is the significance of that date, please?
I received our office received the findings of fact conclusion of law on June 5th, and the date stamped is when we received it. So 30 days from that would be, not including that date, would be June 6th. July 6th, excuse me.
Okay, I have a copy of this findings of fact and conclusions of law and order, and yours is stamped June the 5th, right?
It's dated by the hearing officer, May 30th. I'm giving you and us both the benefit of the doubt. We did not receive it.
This is the hearing. This is Attorney Lamore's same. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. It's dated 30 May.
Correct.
Right. And so you're dating. You're basing the 30 days or counting from June the 5th rather than May 30th.
Correct.
Yeah, well, okay, so then then July the 6th would be the end of the 30 days.
Yes.
Right, okay. That was a question, I kept hearing July the 6th. And my copy of this doesn't have the stamp on it, so I was operating on the issue of the day she issued the order, which was May the 30th. So that's a question I have. May I ask another question? I mean, you told me I'm here to ask questions at the moment, right?
Yes, sir.
What is the significance, if any, of the fact that Attorney Lamore issued this order on May the 30th, and on May 31st, I received, I was served a copy of your motion, of the town's motion for summary judgment in a lawsuit that I filed against the town in 2015. But the town kindly sent me a letter in 2015, in the summer of 2015, telling me that they were not going to bother me anymore about, they didn't say anymore, I think they said for the moment, or for the time being, I don't think, it wasn't permanent, but they said for the moment, we're not going to bother you anymore about these alleged violations on your property. And so, I had filed a lawsuit in Scott District Court, but when I got that letter against the town and the code enforcement office to state my claim against them, but when I got this letter from the town, I just neglected the lawsuit. I just forgot about it because I was happy that they had sent me this letter, and so I never had another thought about the lawsuit. I didn't even know where it was, somewhere back in my files. And then after the day of this hearing that you have there, and her order, Ashley Larmore's order of May the 30th, I went home and set about complying. I mean, I knew I had 30 days to get, and you saw there was a lot of materials on my property. And again, I felt, I knew I wanted to build a shed, 2-story sheds, a studio and an office back off the street where it would be quiet, and a greenhouse. And I knew I was going to need materials. And so I for a long time, I've been salvaging the materials, and they had accumulated, as you could see in the photographs. But when she told me it all had to go, she told me that on May the, or I think I received this in the mail. Yeah, I did receive it in the mail. So I probably received it on May 31st. And I was setting about, I had just started to think about what I was going to do with all those materials when I got this big thick envelope in the mail from the town's attorney in Lexington at Sturgill, Turner, Barker, and Maloney, a man named Derek Wright. And this big thick envelope was his motion for summary judgment, and he had revived this lawsuit, which I had, as I say, I was willing to forget about it. And my question is, was there any coordination between Mr. Wright and the town so that I received this lawsuit the day after I was ordered to start doing all the work over there at my house?
No.
The answer is no.
The answer is no. We turned that litigation over to Sturgill Turner months before we received that. So any coincidence of the dates is exactly that, a coincidence.
Well, I'm not sure, that was a question. I'm not sure, is this a time for me to say anything or just to ask questions?
The purpose of this hearing is for us to review the current condition of the property. We are trying to be as fair as we can here, Mr. Price, so we understand that it takes time to move all of the different debris, all of those different things, and at this point, we're trying to ascertain if you have made any effort to move it at all, or if it is still in the same condition it was in back in April. And if you have begun the process, we need proof that you have begun the process.
He was, Mr. Carter was over just within the last couple of hours. I'm taking pictures. Can you show him the pictures? William Carter?
I didn't bring a copy of that picture, but I'm happy to have Mr. Carter testify if he would like about what he saw.
Okay. Well, I don't think he saw any debris, but I'll let him. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Hey, y'all, jump in. Whenever y'all ready, just jump in. Go ahead, Mr.
Questions?
To date, has any progress been made?
Yes, sir, some.
How much would you estimate at this point?
A small percentage. I mean, he's one person doing all this work. He has made some progress constructing one storage footer, floor, support beam type of building up next to his residence. There were no, I took it out of my pocket. There were no walls on that. There, excuse me? I don't. I can get it in about a minute. There was a picture of, if you want to bring that back up, we can show that. There was one photograph that showed an accumulation of plastic containers up against his residence.
Mhm.
This one. And those containers are no longer there. The last picture, or the last time I saw it, I didn't take a picture of it. They were located further down on the property away from the residence. And this area at the base of this picture has been cleared, and that's where the footers are located, with the floor joists formed for a storage structure.
And that at this point is adjacent to the property.
Correct. It's right up, almost connected to the residence, to the structure, yeah. As far as the storage of the building materials there, what he needs to use, I believe is still there, and it's just a matter of him taking advantage of the time period he was allowed to do that project and not complete it, but to be involved and be in depth into that project, yes. I'm not saying he doesn't do anything. He has done some work. Other occurrences happened. I think he actually had a tree fall from a neighbor's property, a large branch from a tree that he started cutting on, and he and I spoke about that, and I suggested that he not worry about that at the moment, let it die out a little bit, make it easier to cut, and go on and do what he needs to get done in that time period that he's bound by. He's made a little bit of progress, not what a person should make in 30 days, I don't think, but yeah.
I got a question. These pictures here, of course, were taken back before all the trees and bushes got foliage on it.
Correct.
I observed in the video of Mr. Price saying, discussing whether you should have been on his property or on an adjacent property. Upon your last inspection, say that today,
This morning.
did he permit you to go on to where you could see through the foliage? I've been there in the last month, and I can't see inside it because of the foliage of the trees.
I have never been denied access by Mr. Price.
Right.
I went this morning and took photos from all of the surrounding property areas for this purpose as well as an additional purpose. I'll be happy to get the,
I mean, did you feel in any way that due to the growth of the foliage, with it being this time of year, that your view may have been obstructed more
No, sir.
now? Okay.
no, sir.
Okay.
I think as a committee, we need to see the pictures, the
That's
pictures we
what I
took
said.
today.
If you'll excuse me
Really
for about
important.
a minute and a half, I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we permit that. It's really important to understand where we are
The
today.
pictures that he took today, but the pictures that Mr. Carter took this morning were not of the these issues. They were of the tall grass and vegetation issues.
Mm-hmm.
He will go and get that one picture that he's had. I will,
Are we allowed to ask Mr.
Yeah, I'll
Price
have
any
that.
questions?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I think that we have several issues here,
Mhm.
and I think we need to walk through them each, so we have a clear picture. I don't think that Mr. Price is really capable of doing what he is saying he can do. Does he have any building? Building permits? I mean, some of these things are dangerous, he's talking about.
On the video, he stated he didn't have permits because it's a 10 by 10 building, no bigger than 100 square foot. Once you start pouring.
while he does that,
Then it's a
oh,
fixed,
they're powwowing, sorry.
building, that's when you have a permit. If you slide a building in on 4x4 rails that's portable, movable,
Thank you, sir.
then you can put a breeze line. You still may have to observe a 7.5 foot offset that come through code through building inspection, but you're allowed to do it without any inspection. You start pulling footers, there's inspection. Yeah, but that's a question we can ask, but that would be one of our rules. It would be, is it legal? But I mean, still,
I think it helps us understand.
right,
You know, his real deal.
Okay.
right.
I'm not sure that
Whenever you all are ready.
Billy and I both got a lot of experience in the construction business.
What I'm gonna let you do is,
I don't think he can take that material that he's got and build any house.
no, you're right. You asked one specific question, and that was what,
He's had
what progress?
in 2014, the city cleared out everything. So he's been accumulating his since 2014, probably the day after they cleaned him up. That lumber is wet, dry, curled. I mean,
I understand. Y'all-
it's not suitable.
Most of that material doesn't appear, doesn't it? Look at this stuff, most of it doesn't appear to be.
I've got a lot of it in a semi-trailer, and it's curled. And that's protected from the environment, other than the stuff he's got. Rain, snow, water, everything.
I don't know what kind of change it's in there. You know, it's grown up, because I haven't been up there in a while, but it's been probably 5-6 weeks since I drove up Butler Avenue, and I just drove up there just because I was looking for somebody else, and I was looking at the place, and I guess it matters your point of view, it looks like a dump.
Exactly. And
When your property values are.
It's really hard, and property values are big around it.
his argument on the video is, we get rid of it, we're filling up the dump. Well, if everybody collected like that, the dump would be moved from in the county to in our city, within the city limits. And we have to look at, if that was if you were that neighbor, I mean, are we doing them any
That's why I
justice?
asked, so,
I mean,
We're still restricted by whatever the law says.
Yes.
And it appears that he's not in compliance with the orders he was given, irrespective of any other issue.
I agree.
I mean,
As a
you know,
committee,
you-
we're obligated to follow
You know,
the
we
law.
probably won't hear this again or some other angle of it, but, you know, as it, from what I see here and what the explanation we've gotten, he's not in compliance. He may have made some effort, but he's
Still not.
still not compliant.
I'm saying this.
He's still mad at me over a hearing of 3 or 4 years ago. And, but, you know, I can't say no more than other than, you know, he's apparently not in compliance, even if it's only by 1 day. It's,
I mean, a code is like any law that protects us from anybody, a thief,
look
murder,
at that.
I mean,
And they were very lenient with giving him a few extra days.
you know, and every time he does an appeal, he gets an additional time till after. So see that clock stops. As soon as he got that report, he filed this one, the clock stopped again. Now, if he doesn't, if he doesn't like this one, then he'll file it and go to the
He
state.
has to go district court
Right.
first and then to
Right.
circuit.
Yeah.
And I guess they'll hold everything in abeyance until they hear it. so.
And I mean, does it look good that he started a footer? Well, yeah, but he had 3 years to do it. And
I think we have enough evidence at this point to agree that our findings.
Yeah. You know, that makes it do it on your- And, I didn't even know we should have it. Appeal the fines. And what they say.
Yeah, it's a process.
I don't know whether, I don't know how much money Steve's got in there. He probably got the first dollar he ever had. But that's neither here nor there, but, you know, I didn't see him got $5,000. If he would make some kind of effort, but he's killing himself, he's working himself to death. I see him all over town, I see him walking, I see him riding a bicycle, I see him pulling that cart with all the trash back to his place.
And a lot, there's a big hole in there, and that they hit full of acrylic and rotor sharing and, a whole bunch of stuff that I brought from somewhere at 159, like you said. But if you all looked at that, you wouldn't know what it is, you just say it's weeds. And you'd probably say, well, it's gotta be more. You do? Yeah, right. Well, there's locusts in there too, and locusts make a good show. I understand. I'm not saying it wouldn't.
This is the photo I was trying to describe that was taken this morning. This is the one that's I'm gonna call it a construction site, where he is constructing the first of his buildings. There's a barrel just past these, what looks like bamboo standing up past that frame. Yes, there's a dark spot there. That's a 55-gallon drum. It's a barrel. That's about where those plastic containers were located. So obviously he has moved those. But that's the extent of his construction of his storage shed.
And it's been since the last hearing date of the 22nd of May, right?
Correct. That was taken this morning.
Right.
Sorry, what was that, Mr. Parker, you just said?
The original hearing date with Ms. Lamore was like the 21st or 22nd when it was all discussed. And you had stated in that video that you were going to start cleaning it up.
Well, I have cleaned it
Yeah,
up,
but I mean, I'm just asking, is that what's been done since?
Is at the time.
I've been so busy cleaning up and answering their lawsuit, I have not done any building work. Since Attorney Lamore, but I have removed a lot of lumber. A lot of those piles that you saw in those photographs are gone. In fact, except the two big ones are all gone. And I don't know if this is, may I comment at this point?
Yes.
We all know the big problem, increasing problem that the landfill is to Scott County. Not only the landfill, but the shipment of materials to the landfill. And you're probably aware that one of Georgetown's trash trucks collided with two other vehicles last fall, I think it was, and a woman was killed by a Georgetown trash truck. And I have tried in every way to keep shipments of landfill material, and I don't ship anything to the landfill. And this lumber that you saw in this, I don't know, did you take a photograph of it today?
Today, no, sir.
Well, the lumber, most of the lumber that I was going to use in those buildings, I'm talking about structural 2x4s, 12-inch, 12-foot, 8-foot, 10-foot, is still there. But I have gotten rid of all, if you saw the trailer, could you show the trailer again, Mr. Carter, please?
He's referring to this one.
That trailer there is the third load that's that you can see sawhorses, you can't see it, but there's a lot of lumber at the bottom. Various, what else is on there? Furniture items, all of the things that she told me, Attorney Lamore told me, appliances, furniture, materials, equipment. And that is the third, no, that's the fourth load. Third or fourth, I'm not sure. That on that same trailer that I have moved, I have a barn rented. And I'm taking all that stuff to the barn. And I've been so busy doing that I have not had time to do any construction work. And what the point I tried to make, I was ready to start doing that on 30th of May when she sent me this order. Or maybe I got it the 31st. And I have had every intention, still have every intention to comply with what she said. But on the next day, I got this big thick envelope from the defendants, I mean from in this case, the plaintiff, the town, suing me about the whole future of my property was going to, whether or not my property was going to be subject to their 10-inch mowing ordinance. And so I filed papers on June the 6th. I received this paper from them, this big envelope, on May 3rd. It was dated, filed and served May 31st. I probably got it June 1st. And I had to respond. I'm being sued. I had to respond. And so I filed papers in Scott District Court on June the 6th, June the 8th, June the 12th, and the day of the hearing, June the 19th. And that took so the first 19 days of June were not, I didn't have those. She gave me 30 days, but 19 of those 30 days were lost to my having to answer this lawsuit. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to answer it. And we went to court. There was a hearing on June the 19th, and after that I filed another plea. So that has been that has delayed my compliance work for Attorney Lamore's order. But as you can see, did you take any other photographs over there today?
Not of this, not of anything that's relevant to today.
Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of, but in regard to the landfill, the reason I mention that, I phoned a man. I've been phoning everybody I know who has a truck and any interest, begging them to come and get that lumber. And there is still a lot of construction length timber, lumber there. But I couldn't get rid of all the other stuff, plus get rid of the lumber. Because I had to carry it all up to the road and put it on a trailer, which I don't have. That trailer is already occupied. I only have 2 trailers. Although I did talk to a man yesterday who has a trailer, called him yesterday again this morning, and see if his trailer could be made available. And his cousin, I called his cousin, you may know him, Joe Young. I'm talking about Owsley and Joe Young, begging them to come and get the lumber. And I suggested to Young, call the code office this morning and ask Mr. Carter if they will hold off. And he said, Joe Young told me he gets off at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and he can come and pick up the lumber. And I'm doing everything I can to get rid of it. And I'm going to give it away to Joe Young or anybody that'll come and get it. But the important thing, what I've done is I've gotten rid of all the plastic. I had probably several hundred 5-gallon plastic jugs that I will use to make a greenhouse, but they're no longer in sight. I had a pickup load of tone and groove flooring, used tone and groove flooring, that I intend to use to make wooden buckets. All that's gone.
Mr. Price, when you say no longer in sight, could you clarify what you mean by that?
The plastic jugs, you mean?
Yes, no longer in sight.
They're in the basement.
Okay.
They're in the basement of my house. And as well as a lot of the other items that the hearing officer Lamoore, the ordinance lists a whole bunch of things, appliances. I had a whole summer kitchen. I had a place where I canned peaches and apples in the summertime with a cook stove in the outdoors and tables and workstations. All that's gone because I moved it. She told me to move it and it's gone.
Where is it?
What?
Where is it?
The cook stove is in the basement. The tables are down the street. A friend of mine, he's going to pull that trailer, and in the meantime, because that trailer's full, he let me put a couple of work tables that I had outdoors in the summer kitchen. They're down at his house in the backyard until I can empty his backyard. That is, until we can empty that trailer, and then we're going to go to his house and load up those outdoor, what they are, they're plywood and 2x4 construction painted white tables, that workbenches. That's where I did my canning.
Can I
And
ask you a
if
question?
you look at, excuse me,
If you're now starting to do what Mr. Carter and Code Enforcement Office asked you to do, would it not have been easier to just complied upon the first, back in April? If you're making that effort to try to do it now, all this, a lot of attorney times, a lot of money has been used at the expense of, now you're finally starting to do, to a degree, what was asked of you to begin with.
hey, I didn't revive the lawsuit. I was willing to drop the lawsuit. They dropped the lawsuit. They revived the lawsuit.
But that was late May. You filed an appeal to his original complaint of your code violation in April.
Yeah, and it was heard.
And now, in April, had you started doing these things,
Right.
to my understanding, they're very compliant with, okay, we understand you got so much stuff. It's gonna take you more than 7 days. We're gonna give you just show me the effort. But from that point, we went to filing an appeal to argue the point and try to get it to where you could keep it as basically a landfill in the city.
Keep it as a landfill in the city?
Well, upon reviewing the testimony from the video, you were talking about if people would keep their stuff and not take it to the landfill, we'd eliminate landfills.
And
But
not only,
in my view, if I do this in my yard, and Mr. Stark does that in his yard, and everybody in this room does it, then we have moved the landfill from the county, a
To
designated
the
area
city.
where it's governed, to everybody's yard. And then we all have this sight to see. But my point is not about that. My point is, if you'd started your compliance in April, we wouldn't be sitting here
I
today.
didn't get the order, Mr. Perkins, until May. The order was issued May the 30th.
His point.
No,
though-
you got your violation.
Right.
The notice
That
of
was
violation.
noticed, right. Now, had you spoken with, you had 7 days
I
to
did.
appeal it, and you appealed it.
I did try to comply. I did try to in April. In fact, the notice of violation. I'll have to think about that, but let me. I'm trying to ask myself why I appealed. And I think it was, I'm trying to remember, I had all these papers spread out here in front of me on the table. I know what, when they said, this notice of violation had a lot more to it than simply the appliances and the materials and the equipment in the outdoors that needed to be cleaned up. There were other complaints against me, one of which was that I don't use city water because I get all my water off the roof. He just showed you a picture of the rain barrel.
Right, well, I understand that now is, you now have that.
It's been resolved.
And that's been resolved.
Yeah, but it took me several days. It took me a good, I can't remember how many, but I was running around having to satisfy that demand. I had to go to the water company, had to be there when the waterman came to turn on the water. So the first thing, when I got the notice of violation, the first thing I did was satisfy the demand for water and sewer. And I'll say that took probably a good week of negotiating and making sure I would be there and making appointments and everything. Maybe not a week of 8-hour days, but I'm just saying within about a week I had paid my money. No, I hadn't paid my money because they billed me later. But I had gone over there and made out a work order, and I ride a bicycle, Mr. Perkins. I can't just zip around town. It takes me a good half hour to get from my house to the water company and back home again. And I'm not complaining. I'm proud of the fact that I ride a bicycle. But okay, the second complaint was, so that was the water and sewer business was on my mind and consumed some of my time when I could have otherwise been out there, handling materials. What was the other complaint? Do you remember, Mr. Carter? The other.
That was the only one I had a question of, it was why you didn't start removing some of these debris that was unsightly, the infestation, I'm not gonna say infestation, it's the wrong word. The rodent issue by having high grass. High grass alone, is gonna bring in that kind of environment with rodents. I know only one mouse was seen, but just the general cleanup that was asked.
Well,
Not being pushed forward and doing it till this point to where we're 3 months, 4 months later and.
well, I just had most of the hay mowed last Wednesday. And I just told Mr. Carter I was supposed to call a man. I did call him last night at 10 o'clock. A man in Cynthiana told me to call him. He said he'd come over here this morning at 6 o'clock with a 6-foot bush hog. I said if you can come over at 6, we could work until 8, and I could still get to my hearing at 10 o'clock. I made my phone call at 10 o'clock. All I got was an answering machine. And I had a hard time. Let me say this, Mr. Perkins. I had a hard time getting the man to even come last Wednesday. I'm talking about Wendell Green, because all these people who mow are in the middle of their own hay season, and so it was hard for me. I was on the phone for a long time until finally Wendell Green agreed to come and mow the hay. But let me say, you're raising the issue of people managing waste in their backyard. What about the woman who died on the road? Because people weren't managing.
Mr. Price, I think that's what's called an accident.
Yeah,
So
but
can I please finish my point? We have been very kind to allow you to voice your concerns. And your concerns are very important to us. That's why we didn't just come in here and boilerplate an answer. We want to know what's going on and have an understanding of your position. The board is concerned that you have had ample time. This is not just a problem that began in April. This is a problem that began long before April. It just was addressed in April. Amen. The beginning of the process, this specific process was begun in April. From what I have gathered from listening to the video, having some of the background information, is that this has been a problem probably since 2014, roughly. somewhere in about 2014. I will, be lenient enough to say maybe 2015, which tells me we're 2 to 3 years into this process and we still are talking about the same debris. We're still talking about the same issues, the overgrowth, all of the different issues that are a concern, not just for the city, but for the people who live on your block or the people that live in your community who pay taxes. And so at this point, I have not found anything conclusive enough to say that you have done enough for us to say to the city or to the ordinance or to the code enforcement office that we believe that you are capable. We do not believe as a board at this point that you are capable of completing the tasks that were ordered in this document and subsequent documents that now, on top of this document, we have a problem with overgrowth. It just seems to be one thing after another, and we're not saying you're not trying. What we're saying is what you're trying is not working. It's not working at this point. It's just not working. As a board, we are, at this point, I believe that this board is prepared to rule. But we will allow the city to speak as well.
I just like to state one more time on the record what the standard is for the board, and that is the standard of review. If the board determines that there is not substantial evidence on the record, it shall issue an order dismissing the citation. If the board determines there is substantial evidence on the record that a violation was committed, it shall issue a final order upholding the order entered by the hearing officer. That is verbatim from our statute, and that is our ordinance, and that is verbatim from the state statute. Thank you.
At this point, I think if you could give the board about 2 minutes to just chat, we'll be prepared to render a decision, I believe, at this point.
May I say one word before you
You
convene?
can say one thing.
Yeah.
After this, Mr. Price, I'm gonna be straightforward. We've heard enough. I'm gonna let you speak, but after this, we've heard enough.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was.
Go ahead, Mr. Price, you can speak. I'm just letting you know that after this, whatever you say at this point, once we finish, we're gonna render a decision.
Yeah, okay, I'll just simply say, that it sounds to me like from what Attorney Harley just said, that today we're concerned with only the 3 violations, one of which is materials and equipment on my property, which, except for that one bunch of lumber, is all gone. And his photograph should indicate that today. The other violation, the water and sewer is satisfied, and there was a third one. Do you recall what the third violation was? Oh, rodents, and
All of which were dismissed.
that's all was dismissed except the materials and the equipment. And it's all the materials and equipment is gone except for the one big patch of lumber, and hopefully Joe Young's gonna pick that up this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Does the city have any
I want to
response?
add one more thing, and that is, if that turns out to be the case, that's great. All we're asking for in this hearing is, Mr. Price is the one that appealed. We're asking for the hearing officer's order to be upheld. I also want to state for the board, this is just sort of an edification thing. All this is on the record, and it all of your deliberations are public. I noticed before y'all were kind of speaking quietly, and it's okay to speak, but we want to make sure we get it all on the
Yes.
on the microphones.
Yes, sir. I'll just briefly talk about what we discussed kind of quietly. All we discussed really was the facts of the case, really where we are today. We believe that at this point, effort has been made. It just has not been met. Amen. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm looking at, I'm hearing Mr. Price say it's not all completed. He said that. He talked about some debris that was left that he hopes somebody will pick up. The order doesn't allow there to be variance. It just gives specific instruction. And I do not believe, nor does this committee believe, that those instructions have been met at this point. We believe that there's still violations out there that have not fully been resolved. That's kind of what we really discussed at that. And so we were willing to hear out Mr. Price. We were willing to listen to the code enforcement department, about the things that they have seen to this point. And from the testimony we've heard, we still gather that all of the violations have not been resolved. So at this point, this committee will follow the rules outlined in the statute, and we will uphold the city's request that this be, can't remember the exact words you used, but we believe that the hearing officer's findings and the time allotted has been actually a few extra days were given that Mr. Price could meet the burden of proof, and that proof has not been met here today.
If the board is prepared to issue that final order upholding the order entered by the hearing officer, I would respectfully ask that that be done in the form of a motion with a
So
vote.
moved.
Somebody make a motion.
I did.
A second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Motion is upheld.
Now, can I add a comment here now that we're officially done? I think there are monetary consequences involved here. And I hate to see that money go away. I think if Steve's an energetic person, he's a man of conviction, and he tries to live by it, and I appreciate and respect that. What I would like to see him do, if he has the wherewithal, I'd like to see him take what he might wind up paying in costs and fines and so forth, come up with a little extra cash, and hire a little bit of help. I know he can't do all this stuff by himself. I spent 15 years in the building business, and I know that he can't do all this by himself. I'd like to see him get a little bit of help from some, hire some help, get done what he needs to do it in compliance with the building codes that are applicable in this particular case, whatever building he's doing. I know there are guidelines for that. I'd like to see that happen. That's strictly unofficial recommendation on my part, but that's what I'd like to see happen. I hope that's fair. But
If you, may I, do you want me to say anything or not?
it's a done deal now.
I mean, the board has already rendered a decision.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about what Mr. Stark said, it's a point of interest for a building, any building under 120 square feet, no permit is required.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just said,
I mean, no building code has to apply. It's not inspected, in other words, not subject to inspection.
yeah, but actually that's built into the building code. If you don't, as long as you know that, and you do what you do that's in compliance with the existing code, and you don't violate that code, I don't have any problem with what you do. None at all. I just know you can't get all the rest of these compliances
On your own, it's impossible.
accomplished by yourself. I just don't think
Well,
you can do it. If you
you're right.
can, more power to you, go for it.
You're right, and I tell you what, I'm working with the Georgetown College, see if they will take the place and make a native plant sanctuary out of it. Because that's what I'm trying to do, and everybody complains about it, but if Georgetown College wants to do it, maybe they would succeed.
Make a motion to conclude the hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. This hearing is brought to conclusion.
Thank you.
10:59. Thank you, Mr. Price, for your time.